In 2010, Halo Reach was released, and when it did, it immediately contradicted established lore that had been written at the inception of the franchise. Almost immediately following the release of this game, the community lit up with discourse, discussion, and positions of argument in trying to reconcile the massive contradictions that were introduced with the release of the game. And today I'd like to discuss those contradictions, how and why they came into being in the first place, and how they've gradually been resolved, with the exception of one, through subsequent lore drops. Hey everyone, welcome back to Installation 00. And just really quick for people who may not be aware, I've relaunched my second channel, the 00 Lounge, where I talk about all and sundry of things that just interest me in general. And I've kicked that relaunch off with a video that focuses on consciousness and causality, framing it around the ripped out pages of Dr. Halsey's journal. I wanted to start with Halo-esque or Halo-centric content, but expand beyond the normal scope of what I would normally cover, but have every intention on expanding the content well away from anything I've covered before. So if you're interested in discussions on science, technology, engineering, mathematics, metaphysics, life, death, consciousness, all over a glass of whiskey in a comfortable chair, then I recommend popping across to the link in the description, top pinned comment, or the card at the top right. The video in question will also be linked at the end of this video. I hope to see you guys in the lounge. Now, moving back to the subject at hand. In 2001, Halo Combat Evolved hit the shelves and was more or less accompanied in its release by the novel Halo: The Fall of Reach. This novel, something of a prequel story to the narrative being told in Halo Combat Evolved, told the origin story of the Spartan 2 program and Halo's main protagonist, Spartan John 117, who would come to be known as the Master Chief. But the story also included the fall of the UNSC's military stronghold, the planet of Reach. After a near 3-decade-long war against the alien conglomerate known as the Covenant, attacking and glassing colony after colony, billions of human lives extinguished, the Covenant had finally arrived on Earth's doorstep. And the actual series of events of the Fall of Reach painted a very clear picture, a swift and decisive attack on the colony that saw humanity's military stronghold at the centre of the United Nations Space Command falling to the Covenant in less than 3 days. Basically between August 27th and August 30th. 9 years later, Bungie would release Halo Reach. It would focus on Noble Team, a group of Spartan 3s and one Spartan 2, investigating a comms blackout at the Visegrad Relay on the planet of Reach on July 24th of 2552. When it is discovered that the Covenant were responsible for the comms blackout, the winter contingency is declared. The Covenant were on Reach. Yet this occurred on July the 24th, with the original book declaring that the Fall of Reach really began on August the 27th, over a month later. And this isn't the only contradiction within the lore, but we'll get onto that in a minute. The first thing I want to cover is why this happened in the first place. In modern day Halo, we're used to getting a lot of new lore given to us through the books. The expanded universe of Halo told beyond the games is much larger now than it was during Bungie's tenure, and simultaneously ranked strikingly different as well. Bungie held the active Halo franchise between its release in 2001 and their release from the franchise in gaining their own independence again in 2010. During this time, several books were released in the hopes of expanding some of the story of the Halo universe. The Fall of Reach was released pretty much in coincidence with Halo Combat Evolved. In April of 2003, The Flood released. In December of the same year, First Strike. In October of 2006, one of my personal favourites, The Ghosts of Onyx, released. Followed nearly a year to the day in 2007 with Contact Harvest. And finally, in 2008, The Cole Protocol. There was another release in 2009 being Halo Evolutions, but was a group of shorter stories, all compiled into a single volume. All of these books, in one way or another, served to expand the universe of Halo beyond the games that had been released to that point, which would have been Halo CE, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo ODST, and Halo Reach, with the side entry of the real-time strategy game Halo Wars. However, despite this effort to expand the narrative universe of Halo, Bungie kept that expanding lore at arm's length. The hierarchy of established lore in Bungie's eyes was very, very clear-cut. The games took precedence. Any lore released in the games was primary. Anything that came out in books was secondary, and anything beyond that was tertiary or negligible. This ultimately meant that when the time came that they were writing the narrative that would become Halo Reach, the lore that had been established in the book The Fall of Reach really wasn't on the table for discussion. The game took priority. But of course, to the fans' perspective, The Fall of Reach had released at the inception of the franchise itself. In the fans' eyes, the book The Fall of Reach was lore that was established 9 years before the release of the game covering the same contemporaneous events. In the fans' eyes, The Fall of Reach came first, laid key foundational elements to the Halo universe as we knew it, and provided the lore foundations upon which most of the Halo franchise we had come to know and love by that point was built upon. So from a fan's perspective, if the lore had been established 9 years before, why was it even necessary to release a game covering the same events that contradicted it so heavily? And really the answer to that goes back to Bungie's simple position that the lore of the games outranks anything else. So when the game launched, we were confronted with numerous lore contradictions. The biggest amongst them was when the Covenant invasion actually began. The way the book reads is that the invasion happened in the last few days of August of 2552, yet the game has the Covenant being discovered on Reach at the latter end of July 2552. The next set of big contradictions is where the Pillar of Autumn was during these dates. In the book, the Pillar of Autumn, a Halcyon-class cruiser, a much older and antiquated design, was pulled from long-term storage and given upgrades and retrofits following its selection for Operation Red Flag on August 25th, 2552. These refits were concluded and she was recommissioned for service at 0400 hours on August 30th, the day Reach finally fell. Operation Red Flag was initiated almost immediately afterward, with the goal of using Spartan 2s to infiltrate a Covenant ship, take it to the Covenant homeworld, capture a Prophet, and use them for ransom to broker a truce. But as the Pillar of Autumn was on its way out of the system to embark on this operation, it was recalled back to Reach to aid in planetary defense. After deploying all Spartans groundside to guard the generators of the orbital defense platforms, and 2 Spartans, the Master Chief and Linda, to the UNSC circumference to destroy the nav database, the Pillar of Autumn recovered the Master Chief and a mortally wounded Linda and jumped out of system just before 7 AM on August the 30th, bound on a not-so-random slipspace jump that would result in them arriving at Installation 04, the first Halo. Yet in the game, the Pillar of Autumn is found in the Azod shipbreaking yards and has to take receipt of Cortana before launching. Cortana is another source of contradiction, whereby in the game she is being ferried from underneath Sword Base to the Pillar of Autumn by Noble 6, yet in the book she's already aboard the Pillar of Autumn, giving the system a full shakedown when it's recommissioned. In the game, Dr. Halsey comes in contact with Noble Team at various points throughout the campaign, Noble Team are predominantly a group of Spartan 3 super soldiers. Dr. Halsey acquired, trained, augmented, and raised all of the Spartan 2s. So these unknown Mjolnir-clad Spartans, at least to her perspective at this time, should not have existed. It wasn't until the latter book, Halo Ghosts of Onyx, that Halsey discovered the Spartan 3 program existed. These are just a few of the major lore contradictions that were introduced when Halo Reach hit the shelves, in contradiction to the established lore of Halo The Fall of Reach back in 2001. So how was this remedied? Well, the original book had some typographical mistakes. For example, I have the original copy of Halo The Fall of Reach from 2001, and all of the dates read the year 2542, when, as we all well know, it should read 2552. There were also some minor grammatical issues. In any case, it all led to a re-release in 2010, which introduced numerous new pieces of lore and short fiction that fixed, or at least attempted to fix, many of these earlier contradictions between the two respective narratives of the original 2001 release and the game Halo Reach. There are also several slight changes to wording of specific sentences and series of events that have less impact to the contradictions we're talking about here and just merely serve to bring the narrative of the story in line with what the audience already knew by this time. There were also a few more minor issues that were introduced in this 2010 reissue, which led to a definitive edition re-release in 2011. Now, don't get me wrong, there are further complications that were presented when Halo The Fall of Reach, the comic series, and Halo The Fall of Reach animated adaptation were released. But for now, we'll keep things relatively simple in just focusing on the contradictions between the original book and the game. If you want me to dive into all of that, let me know in the comments below. By 2011, 343 Industries had taken control of the franchise and Bungie had stepped away. And with that change of hands came a slight restructuring of how lore is ranked across games, books, and extended media. 343 Industries' desire to expand the Halo universe through mainline games but also through novels and extended media lent into the idea that books could present storylines that ranked on par with the game lore and was supplementary to it. Now, unfortunately, in some cases, that went a little bit too far the other way, in that certain revelations that we come to in the games were only really foreshadowed within the books, so to fully understand who specific characters were, what specific events were going on in the 343 Industries era of games, you kind of needed to read the books. It's not that you couldn't enjoy the games for what they were, but they just made more sense if you also read the books. Which does present its own issues because the Halo books, the extended media of the Halo franchise, is a niche. And in more recent years, most unfortunately, Halo itself has become a niche. So a niche within a niche means that proportionally only a tiny subset of Halo fans would read the books in addition to playing the games. So this speaks to not allowing major plot points to be resolved in books before or after respective games, when it's all the more rewarding and would reach all the more people within the games. But that's a different debate altogether. In either case, this re-release of The Fall of Reach under 343's tenure strived to try to correct these lore contradictions, and it succeeded in practically all of them with the exception of one. And really now the only way that we can fully understand what was fixed and what wasn't is if we go through the series of events in chronological order. And once we've done that, I'll lay out the reasoning, the resolutions, and my final thoughts on these contradictions and their reconciliations. On July 23, 2552, the fleet of Valiant Prudence arrives at Reach and immediately deploy to the Vieri territory under active camouflage systems. The goal of this small fleet is to infiltrate and secure artifacts and relics and neutralize high-profile targets. The law surrounding this, that was retroactively put in to fix some contradictions of the earlier arrival of this fleet than was originally intended in the original book, is that Ro Barutami, shipmaster of the Long Night of Solace and known as the Master of Solace, had been long seeking for the Forerunner homeworld of Maithrillian. He and his fleet had recently been in the Beta Iridani system, looking for Forerunner relics, as he had been amassing a huge collection of powerful Forerunner artifacts to help him find the Forerunner capital. It is possible that he either intended to find living Forerunners at Maithrillian or use relics at Maithrillian to bolster his own power and influence. We'll never know because he was aboard the Long Night of Solace when it fell. On July 24th, Noble Team arrive to investigate the Visegrad relay. The Covenant are discovered, and when they eventually arrive at the Visegrad relay itself, they are ambushed by a team of zealots, where they manage to fight them off, regain communications, and the winter contingency is declared. This initiates the UNSC's emergency defense plan and kicks into effect only supplemental orders to the winter contingency. Orders that lean heavily into secrecy, upholding the Cole Protocol, and securing or destroying sensitive information, including any stored on machinery, equipment, records, logs, and personnel. On July 26th, the Covenant attack Oni's sword base. The attack is fended off, air defences are brought back online, and a Covenant corvette is shot down. August 1st, Battlegroup Leviathan arrive in-system following the battle at Sigma Octanus 4, where Keyes aboard the UNSC Iroquois performed the Keyes Loop. The Iroquois is tracked with a Covenant tracking mite back to Reach by a separate Covenant fleet. August 12th, very early morning, the Surdock Ridge recon mission reveals a large Covenant invasion force on Surdock Ridge. As dawn breaks, the Battle of Surdock Ridge takes place. At 1100 hours of the same day, Keyes is promoted to captain and given command of the Pillar of Autumn. Following this, the Covenant pylon is destroyed, revealing the Covenant invasion force and the supercarrier, the Long Night of Solace. August 14th, Operation Uppercut takes place. The Long Night of Solace is destroyed, George is registered as missing in action, and a massive Covenant fleet arrive at Reach immediately afterwards. After landing hard planetside with a re-entry pack, Noble 6 begins a 4-day hike to the city of New Alexandria. August 18th to August 23rd, the battle for New Alexandria takes place. At the conclusion, Spartan Cat of Noble Team is assassinated. August 25th, Cortana chooses John 117 as her intended courier, and the Pillar of Autumn and Captain Keyes are confirmed for Operation Red Flag. The Pillar of Autumn receives upgrades ready for Operation Red Flag between the 25th and the 30th of August. August 27th at 0400 hours, the Pillar of Autumn is in orbit above Reach, on the far side of the planet away from the battle. Keyes sends correspondence to Vice Admiral Insingul regarding the Autumn's readiness level in being ready in about 72 hours, and laments that he has been forbidden to inform the crew of the Pillar of Autumn of the Covenant presence on Reach. At 0800 hours of the same day, the Spartan 2s are fully briefed on Operation Red Flag. On August 29th at 0600 hours, the Master Chief receives his suit of Mjolnir Mark V powered assault armour. An attempt is made on John 117's life, however due to the symbiotic relationship between himself and the AI Cortana, he emerges triumphant. August 29th at approximately dusk, Oni's sword base is ordered for torch and burn. Noble team are reassigned to Oni to collect Cortana from Halsey beneath Sword Base. Package secured, Noble head to Azod. Halsey leaves for Castle Base, approximately 2,000 kilometers away, in a Pelican. Sometime around or just before midnight of August 30th, Halsey arrives at Castle Base. 0400 hours of the same day, the Pillar of Autumn is recommissioned and starts moving out of system for Operation Red Flag. 0447 hours, the Covenant fleet of Particular Justice is detected as they arrive into the system. At 0519 hours, the UNSC is recalled to Rally Point Zulu. At this point, the Pillar of Autumn, that was outbound out of system for Operation Red Flag, turns around and returns to Reach. At 0534 hours, the Pillar of Autumn is engaged in battle above Reach against the earlier fleet. At 0537 hours, a mere 3 minutes later, the massive combined Covenant fleet that was detected earlier arrives at Reach via an inter-system slipspace jump. At 0558 hours, the Master Chief briefs the Spartans aboard the Pillar of Autumn regarding the change of the mission and the change of their orders. At 0616 hours, the Spartans dispatch to Generator Defense and the UNSC Circumference. The majority of the Spartans go planet-side to defend the generators of the orbital defense platforms to enable point defense of the colony to be maintained, while John and Linda go to the UNSC Circumference to secure navigational databases as per the Cole Protocol. The Pillar of Autumn continues to engage Covenant ships above Reach. At 0631 hours, Spartan Red Team, the majority of the Spartan 2s, make it groundside for generator defense. Many Spartans die from having to bail out and fall hard to the planet's surface as their dropship is attacked by Covenant flyers. 0637 hours, Chief and Johnson's team meet up on Gamma Station. Linda is mortally wounded just thereafter. The nav data is scrubbed, and the Pillar of Autumn picks up Chief, Johnson's team, and Linda. Linda is put into cryostasis immediately. At 0647 hours, the Master Chief attends the bridge of the Pillar of Autumn. The orbital defense platforms are already off, and the Pillar of Autumn prepares to jump to slipspace, with Cortana having put in not-so-random navigational data, meaning the Pillar of Autumn's intended destination ends up being Alpha Halo. At 0649 hours, Spartan Red Team arrive at the generators for the orbital defense platforms. At 0711 hours, Fred, Kelly and Joshua take down a Covenant cruiser over Longhorn River, and the events of Halo First Strike takes over, regarding events on Reach. And finally, on September the 19th, 2552, the Pillar of Autumn arrives at Installation 04. Now, you may have noticed that I left out the presence of the Pillar of Autumn at Azod. And that's because of all the lore contradictions that arose as a consequence of Halo Reach being created and contradicting the lore established in Halo the 4 Reach from 2001, all of the major contradictions were resolved as a consequence of the reissues of the Fall of Reach and some supplementary lore here and there, with the exception of the Pillar of Autumn's presence at Azod. Pretty much all other appearances and locations of the Autumn can be explained by fleet mobilizations, changing objectives, refits, but the presence on Azod is a major contradiction. The Pillar of Autumn apparently prepares for a slipspace jump to Installation 04 at 6:37 AM on August 30th, 2552. Yet, at approximately 4:52 PM on August 30th, 2552, Noble 6 and Emil delivered Cortana to Captain Keyes while the Pillar of Autumn rested in dry dock at the Azod shipbreaking yards. Nearly 10 hours after the Pillar of Autumn prepared for the not-so-random slipspace jump to Alpha Halo. But therein, the smaller frictions and contradictions have been resolved, including Cortana, in that she was simultaneously in the facility beneath Sword Base with Halsey and then Noble 6 in transit to the Pillar of Autumn, and with the Pillar of Autumn as it got prepped for leaving on Operation Red Flag. This can be explained simply by the fact that she can have a partitioned version of herself, a smaller fragment effectively, available to Halsey beneath Sword Base, while the majority of herself is still aboard the Pillar of Autumn. This would also probably explain why Cortana really didn't talk at all when Noble 6 collected her. She's usually quite verbose. She may have partitioned off a version of herself that solely focused on processing the information from the Forerunner relic. As far as Halsey being suddenly confronted with a Spartan 3 team, and yet seemingly not knowing they're Spartan 3s until it's revealed in The Ghosts of Onyx, it's somewhat of a non-issue, because Halsey didn't need explicit confirmation to suspect that Oni would have other competitive projects on the go, that other parallel Spartan programs may be in development. In fact, there was clear evidence of budget wars for financing of respective black projects over the course of the Spartan program itself. She was aware of this. Her encountering Noble Team, a group of Spartans that she knows are not her own, isn't really a law break, it's more of a dramatic reveal for the audience and not necessarily a revelation for Halsey. She's too smart to not suspect something like the Spartan 3s existed. As far as the invasion force seemingly happening a lot earlier than it was intended in the original book, this is really a scope illusion. The Fall of Reach is written like a military memoir focused really on Chief's operational bubble within Operation Red Flag. Chief's awareness is limited by mission focus and compartmentalization. That's not a contradiction, that's basic realism within the context of the Office of Naval Intelligence. Wars look different depending on where you stand. To civilians, it can be a slow escalation because they're on the ground while the Covenant forces were gradually invading. To High Command, their strategic shifts. To Chief, Red Flag, oh shit, Reach is falling. Both views can coexist simultaneously and both be true. And Ro Barutami's desire to find Maithrillian gave him a reason to keep his actions on Reach a secret to the rest of the Covenant and to humanity. At the end of the day, the fleet of Valiant Prudence is artifact hunting, it's not a full invasion force. They were there on luminary-guided artifact retrieval. They had zealot strike teams, deniable incursions, and opportunistic escalation tactics. You also have to bear in mind that the zealots that effectively hunted Noble Team over the entirety of the campaign were at the Visegrad Relay likely because the luminary pointed them there. Professor Sovad was in possession of what he called a latchkey discovery, something that could change the course of human history by unlocking the secrets of Forerunner artifacts. This couldn't have been a more high-profile target for the Zealots to acquire, so their presence at Visegrad Relay was likely to find that relic. Of course, they didn't really understand when they got there that it was within a datapad that was being held by a single human professor. So when Noble Team did arrive, and they evidently witnessed from darkened corners them grab whatever this device is that has these secrets within it, that led to them wanting to get that information back. Which is also why the first Spartan killed by the Zealots is Kat, because she was the one who took possession of that latchkey discovery, and the Zealots had no way of knowing that she had actually had to give that over to Dr. Catherine Halsey. They would have assumed she was still in possession of it. And when they still couldn't retrieve it, they continued to hunt Noble Team as not just high-value targets, but as couriers of information and intelligence that would be critical to the Great Journey. So most of the other major lore contradictions have been solved with the subsequent lore drops, except the presence of the Pillar of Autumn at Azod. Literally between 0647 hours and 0700 hours, the Autumn is already in orbit, generators are failing, the ODP network is collapsing, Chief boards the Pillar of Autumn, Linda is put into cryo, and a jump is initiated. This part of the novel is treated as a continuous escape action, so there is no real operational pause, no atmospheric re-entry window, no groundside stop, no time cushion. The ship is fleeing a collapsing orbital battle space. Yet to get it to fit, the Autumn must descend into atmosphere, land or hover at a Zod, physically retrieve Cortana, take off again, climb to orbit, and then escape. That maneuver is not going to be minutes long, it's a major flight operation in an active kill zone. Even if we compress the physics, it cannot fit inside the book's escape sequence, not without breaking the narrative flow of the novel. And why did this happen? Because Halo Reach is not trying to coexist with the novel, it's retelling the Fall of Reach from another perspective, but not subordinating itself to the book. Late Bungie design philosophy was game canon first, extended universe adapts later. They expected future writers to patch continuity, and 343 did. To a point. They softened the edges, but they didn't erase the seam. You can still see it if you look closely enough. And my final thoughts on this is, can this be patched somehow? I mean, there is a frame reference to allow it to happen. The only meaningful way that I can reconcile it is if the Pillar of Autumn prepares to jump to slipspace and orders are given from the Office of Naval Intelligence to return to a Zod to collect the Cortana fragment. At this point, all non-essential personnel have already been readied and entered into cryo, hence Chief's brief cameo in the final cutscene within a cryopod, even if it makes more lore sense that we were actually looking at Linda, but would also fit in with Oni's behaviours to keep mission-critical information secret until the last minute. The only issue really being, however, that the package was collected for transit to Azod from Sword Base at dusk the previous day. So unless orders were delayed due to the Autumn being otherwise engaged in planetary defence and red flag preparation, but that would also be risking the Autumn leaving system or being destroyed before collecting mission-critical data from Cortana's fragment. It seems an awful lot to risk, even for Oni and their non-standard military chain of command. So broadly speaking, the story told in the original Fall of Reach book is a story told almost centering on the Master Chief and his awareness of events. In subsequent editions, with additional lore drops, that narrative was expanded to bridge the gaps in the contradictions between the original book and the game released in 2010. The only major contradiction still standing is the Pillar of Autumn's presence at Azod, but with my suggestion, that may be fixed as well. I'd like to hear your perspectives on how you would change things, how you would sort these inconsistencies and contradictions in the comments down below. And until next time. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, be sure to tap that like button. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Pop a comment down below on things you'd like me to cover in the future or any thoughts on today's video. I'll just quickly take this opportunity to thank my patrons and YouTube supporters: Falcon X003, the singular Contender class Ancilla, Laser and Spartan 0137, two of the triumvirate of minds within the Metarch of my installation, my installation's monitors: Shane, Orion, Spartan 1029, 121 Esoteric Sight, Ashley and Sophia, the creche of sub-monitors: Legion, Ryan, Labrat, Element Zero, J3, Mr. Keys, Gunslinger Cult, Evermore's, Personal Devil, Scion Esports, Phantasma and Tony, my fleet of Strato Sentinels, my most loyal of Enforcers, and every single one of the awesome individuals helping to support the channel over on Patreon. It really does help and allows me to keep doing what I do, and I can't thank you all enough. Huge shout to my Tier 0 Transcendent YouTube members Balaz, Jimbo and Mori. Thank you for continuing to stand sentry over my installation from all threats metaphysical. And if you would like to help support the channel in a more visceral way, consider jumping aboard as a YouTube member or patron to earn tons of perks, merch and goodies along the way. Thank you again for watching, take it easy everyone, and find peace in the domain.